Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. This lecture is for BBA2. The subject is Principles of Microeconomics, and this is our lecture number 9, which is delivered by Ms. Zahra Arif. In this lecture, we will discuss about capitalism in detail. That what are the characteristics of capitalism? What are the pros and cons of capitalism? Capitalist economic system. A capitalist economic system is one characterized by free markets and the absence of government intervention in the economy. What it says? Absence of government intervention. In practice, a capitalist economy will need some government intervention, primarily to protect private property. This is important to distinguish between capitalism and anarchism. There are two systems, anarchism and capitalism. In anarchism, there is absolutely no government intervention. But in capitalism, there is a little bit government intervention only to protect the private property. Features of capitalist economic system. Economic freedom. Individuals are free to set up businesses and provide the goods and services they want. Consumer sovereignty. Consumers are free to decide which goods and services to purchase. Limited government. Government intervention are limited to the protection of the private property and provision of public goods. Finance sector. Capitalism requires a developed banking and financial system which can provide loans to the companies and banking services to households. Profit motive is seen as important for enabling an efficient distribution of resources and encouraging innovations and responsive markets. Market forces. Now, they play a very important role by the market forces. That market forces will decide what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. For example, if demand rises, firms have an incentive to increase the supply of the particular product. Then, flexible labor market. It is easy to hire the worker and to fire the worker. Hire and fire. Free trade. Low tariff barriers to encourage international trade. Friedman on capitalism. Milton Friedman has written its book Capitalism and Friedman in 1962. He wrote that there is one and only one social responsibility of business: to use its resources and engage in activities designed to increase its profit, so long as it stays within the rules of the game, which is to say, engages in open and free competition without deception or fraud. Now, these are the examples of the capitalist economy system. Hong Kong is at number 1, Singapore is at number 2, New Zealand is at number 3, Australia is at number 4, and Canada is at number 5. Whereas US is ranked as 12th and UK is ranked at 13 as capitalist economy system. This is by Global Finance. In the real world, many economies which are viewed to have capitalist economic system may have government spending taking up to 35% of GDP. This is because the government pays for welfare, health, education, and national defense. However, the economy is still viewed as capitalist because in the area of private enterprise, firms are free to decide what to produce and for whom to produce. Economies who advocate capitalism. Friedrich Hayek, he has advocated capitalism in his book The Road to Serfdom in 1944. Milton Friedman in his book which he wrote in 1962, that is Capitalism and Freedom, And Adam Smith, he wrote in 1776 about the book, in the book, The Wealth of Nation about capitalism, he advocates capitalism. Now, alternative to capitalism. A capitalist economic system is often contrasted to the socialist or communist. It's a contrast of socialism and communism, which we will discuss in the next lecture, where economic decisions are made centrally by the government agencies. In a communist economy, the means of production are owned collectively and the government has more say in what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. Advantages and disadvantages of capitalism. Pros. Incentives to be rich encourage innovations. Firms have incentives to be efficient. Consumers are free to choose products they desire. Prevents large bureaucratic government. Better than alternatives. And the cons are firms can gain monopoly power and exploit consumers. Firms with monopoly power can pay low wages. Externalities can damage the environment. Tends to lead to large inequality. And there is a prone to boom and bust in the economic cycle. Pros of capitalism. A society that puts equality before freedom will get neither. A society that puts freedom before equality will get a high degree of both. This is said by the Milton Friedman. Economic freedom helps political freedom. If government owns the means of production and set prices, it invariably leads to a powerful state and creates a large bureaucracy which may extend into other areas of life. Efficiency. Firms in the capitalist-based society face incentives to be efficient and produce goods which are in demand. These incentives create the pressure to cut costs and avoid waste. State-owned firms often tend to be more inefficient. For example, less willing to get rid of surplus workers and few incentives to try new innovative working practices. Innovations. Capitalism has a dynamic where entrepreneurs and firms are seeking to create and develop profitable products. Therefore, they will not be stagnant, but invest in new products which may be popular with consumers. This can lead to product development and more choices of goods. Economic growth. With firms and individuals facing incentives to be innovative, work hard, this creates a climate of innovations and economic expansions. This helps to increase real GDP and lead to improved living standards. This increased wealth enables a higher standard of living. In theory, everyone can benefit from this increased wealth, and there is a trickle-down effect from rich to poor. There are no better alternatives. As Winston Churchill, it has been said that democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the others that have been tried. A similar statement could be applied to capitalism. Cons of capitalism. Capitalism is a standing belief that the most wickedest of man will do the most wickedest of things for the greatest good of everyone. This is said by John Maynard Keynes. Monopoly power. Private ownership of capital enables firms to gain monopoly in product and labor markets. Firms with monopoly power can exploit their position to charge high prices. Monopoly power. Firms with monopoly. Monopoly means single buyer. Monopoly means single seller. Firms with monopoly power can pay lower wages to workers. In capitalist societies, there is often great inequality between the owner of the capital and those who work for the firms. Social benefit ignored. A free market will ignore externalities. A profit maximizing capitalist firm is likely to ignore negative externalities such as pollution from production. This can harm living standards. Similarly, a free market economy will underprovide goods with positive externalities such as health, public transport, and education. This leads to an inefficient allocation of resources. Even supporters of capitalism will admit that government provision of certain public goods and public services are essential to maximize the potential of capitalist society. Inherited wealth and wealth inequalities. A capitalist society is based on the legal right to private property and the ability to pass on wealth to future generations. Capitalists argue that a capitalist society is fair because you gain the reward of your hard work. But often people are rich simply because they inherit wealth or are born into a privileged class. Therefore, capitalist society not only fails to create equality of outcome but also fails to provide equality of opportunity. Inequality creates social division. Societies which are highly unequal create resentment and social division. Diminishing marginal utility of wealth. A capitalist society argues it is good if people can earn more, leading to income and wealth inequality. However, this ignores the diminishing marginal utility of wealth. A millionaire who gets an extra million sees little increase in economic welfare. But that £1 million spent on health care would provide a much bigger increase in the social welfare. Boom and bust cycles. Capitalist economies have a tendency to boom and bust with painful recessions and mass unemployment. Economists of pros and cons of capitalism. I react pragmatically where the market works. I'm for that. Where the government is necessary. I'm for that. I'm deeply suspicious of somebody who says I'm in the favor of privatism or I'm deeply in the favor of public ownership. I'm in the favor of whatever works in the particular case. This is said by John K. Galbraith. Most economists take a nuanced approach to capitalism, supporting broad principles of free market but concerned with abuses of free markets such as monopoly, inequality, and externalities. However, some like Hayek are more passionate in support of limited government intervention and virtues of capitalism. Advantages of capitalist economic system. It is more efficient, less bureaucratic, more innovative, discourages discrimination and forces people to trade with each other, breaking down barriers. Problems of capitalist economic system. Inequalities. Capitalist economic system invariably leads to inequalities of wealth and income. However, it is argued that this inequality provides an incentive for wealth generation and economic growth. Monopoly. In a capitalist society, firms could gain monopoly power over consumer and workers. Environmental problems. A capitalist society driven by the profit motive may take decisions to maximize economic income in short term, but at the cost of environmental problems in the long term. This is the end. Hope you understand this slide.